Our story opens with three young girls walking into a horror house at an amusement park. One girl gets separated from the other two. She turns around to see a cloaked figure with a devil's mask approaching her. She tells him to leave her alone, but he stabs her in the stomach, then drags her into another room and hangs her up. Was it a prank? What is happening? This is Movie Shortens. Follow us today to an American horror movie called Hellfest 2018. Be aware, there are spoilers. The next day, a girl called Nat arrives at the house of her friend, Brooke. Another girl called Taylor is also there. Nat and Brooke talk girl talk about a boy named Gavin who apparently likes Nat. Just then, Brooke's boyfriend, Quinn, comes in and says hello. Later, Nat, Brooke, Taylor, and Quinn enter the Hellfest amusement park, where they find Gavin and Taylor's boyfriend, Asher. So now, they are a group of 6. People in all sorts of creepy costumes are walking amongst the crowd, scaring them. We see the back of a stranger as he goes through the security check to enter Hellfest. The group goes for some drinks and decides where they'll go first, and the stranger watches the crowd from a distance. Then he puts on a mask and pulls on his hood. He walks past a drink vendor's cart and picks up a knife. The team enters a haunted house, and after a few scares, the boys run off and leave the girls alone. They then go to an old classroom where a girl runs through crying for help, then hides behind a curtain. The stranger appears, holding the knife, and steps up to Nat, but she tells him where the girl is hiding. He reaches in and pulls her out, and she's still screaming for help. Brooke and Taylor leave, but Nat stands there watching. He's poised with the knife, and Nat tells him to go ahead. So he stabs the girl in the chest, and she dies. Nat's not sure if it's real or fake, so she quickly leaves to join Brooke and Taylor outside. The stranger walks outside and looks at Nat as they walk off with the boys. A little further on, and they see the stranger again, watching them. He's making Nat nervous, but the others just think he's one of the amusement park's employees. They try some of the games and win some prizes. Nat and Gavin wander off on their own, and as they enter a photo booth, the stranger watches them. He walks over to the booth and takes their photos, and Brooke sees him. She goes after him, but he disappears. Quinn walks up from behind and she gets a fright. Gavin then wants to go off on his own and tells the others to go ahead without him. Gavin wants to get a doll for Nat, so he finds a staff locker room, and just as he finds a doll, the stranger appears. He trips Gavin and kills him. They're at the ride that takes them to the Deadlands amusement. The stranger uses Gavin's phone and texts Nat that he has a surprise for her. Of course, Nat thinks it's Gavin texting. So they all go off on the ride. Nat sits in the ride by herself. During the ride, Nat's carriage stops and the lights go out. Then a red light comes on and she looks around and sees a figure standing nearby. He starts to come closer and she thinks it's the same stranger, and she screams out for help. The others are outside and wondering why she was screaming, and just then her carriage comes out with the stranger sitting on the front and facing her. The others are worried, and when they look around, they find 3 more figures that look the same, supposedly being part of the ride. Nat joins the others. They walk on further, and Asher gets a hell of a scare when a guy in chains grabs him. Another guy in a costume picks up Taylor and runs off with her. They go after her and find her, but more creepy people come and lead each of them into a fog. Asher and Quinn go into the boys' maze, and the 3 girls go into the girls' maze. The stranger enters the maze through another door from the outside. He enters a work area and picks up a hypodermic needle. Elsewhere, the girls enter a hall with hands protruding that try to grab them. As Brooke and Taylor run off, a sliding panel moves across, and Nat has to go to a different direction. Nat enters a room with scary props here and there. Suddenly, a glass panel on the side shows the stranger looking at her. He starts banging on the glass and she panics, trying to get out. Finally, she gets through a door and away. She finds Brooke, Taylor, and Quinn outside, but Asher is still inside, trying to find a way out. As he walks through the semi-darkness, he sees a scary face, then what looks like dead bodies. Suddenly, the stranger appears in front of him and pulls him down. He holds Asher down and kills him. Outside, a monster runs up and squirts green goop onto Nat's clothes, so she and Brooke go to the women's toilets to clean up. They talk about going to Spain together, then Brooke says she'll wait outside. Nat tries to clean some of the goop out of her hair, when suddenly, the stranger appears, but her eyes are closed and she doesn't see him. Just as quickly, he disappears. She looks for a clean toilet to use. She sends a text message to Gavin, asking him if he's getting close, and a responding tone sounds close by. A message comes back saying, yes. She asks him how close, and again she hears the responding tone, then sees the stranger's boots outside the toilet door. She crawls into the next booth, and shortly after, he reaches over and touches her head. She opens the door and makes a run for it. She and Brooke call security, but the security guard says he can't do anything without a description. And after all, they're in a theme park to be scared. Nat and Brooke find Quinn and ask where Asher is, but Quinn hasn't seen him. He tells them that Taylor has volunteered to do a stunt on stage. They run to watch what happens. Taylor comes out to be beheaded by a guillotine, but when Nat sees the shoes of the guillotine operator, she panics and tries to stop it. The blade drops, but it's only a fake head, and Taylor is okay. The curtains close, and the other performers have left, but the stranger pushes Taylor through the guillotine and ties her down as she screams for help, but no one can hear her. When the blade drops, it hits the back of Taylor's neck, but only makes a shallow cut. So the stranger winds the blade up much higher, but he has some difficulty with the mechanism. While he's distracted, she unties the bonds and escapes. She runs outside calling for help, but the stranger catches her and hits her, then stabs her. Everyone watching just assumes it's part of the show. Quinn runs up to help, but the stranger stabs Quinn as well, and Nat and Brooke arrive to see the stranger turning to look at them. They run away, and everyone else now realizes it's for real. People are running scared in every direction. 2 security guards grab the stranger and pull him to the ground, but it's the wrong guy. An announcement over the speaker tells everyone to leave the park. Nat and Brooke run into the Welcome to Hell maze, and the stranger follows them. He sees a dummy with an axe in its chest, so he puts the knife in his pocket and takes the axe. He closes the entrance door and breaks the handle so they can't escape through there. Nat and Brooke hide in a closet trying to make a phone call, but there's no reception. They wait till the stranger has passed, then they go back to the entrance door, but find the handle broken off. They have to go through the maze, so they look for some weapons, but most of them are fake. They find a wooden pole and a hammer. Then they make their way through warily and come to a room full of mannequins with covers over their faces. But the stranger is standing amongst them. He swings the axe at Brooke and cuts her leg, but Nat hits him across the head twice with the hammer, and he drops to one knee as they run off. They enter another room with white masked figures and try to hide amongst them as the stranger follows them. He examines all the masks, looking for them. Then suddenly he swings the axe, but he only hits a dummy. Nat comes out and hits him repeatedly with the hammer, and he falls and drops his knife. She tells Brooke to run. The stranger kicks Nat down, then knocks her out with the blunt side of the axe. Brooke goes through the left side pathway, then sees the stranger cutting his way through to get her, but she's having trouble getting away with the cut on her leg. Nat has recovered and comes to look for Brooke, but she takes the right side pathway. Just as the stranger is about to swing the axe at Brooke, Nat jumps out and stabs him with the knife, and he falls to the floor bleeding. As Nat and Brooke approach the exit, the police rush in and look for the stranger, but he's escaped. They sit outside together, and a policewoman tells them that they couldn't find him. Now, we hear a news report on a car radio about the killings at Hellfest, as an SUV pulls into the driveway of a house. We see the stranger inside of a shed, putting his mask into a cabinet with other gruesome masks, and he places the strip of photos of Gavin and Nat in the cabinet as well. Now we see him entering the living room of the house and looking at a young girl asleep under a blanket on a sofa. He removes his hood and stands quietly watching her until she wakes up and looks at him. Suddenly, she realizes it's her daddy and she goes to him. He gets down on one knee and gives her a stuffed doll from the amusement park. Creepy daddy. Like and subscribe to watch more videos like this, and don't forget to turn on your notifications. That really helps my channel. Thanks for watching.